Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed this free clip of aggressive progressives on the Young Turks. This is just a preview of what you will receive with TYT membership. That means exclusive interviews, panel discussions, and more of Jimmy, and of course, me. Check out this next clip, and if you like what you see, you can access full episodes of Aggressive Progressives by becoming a member. Head to tyt.com/join now.
Something a little on the breaking side of things, Amazon just revealed that they're going to be paying $15 an hour plus for all employees as a result of pressure from different media outlets, the workers across the country, and Bernie Sanders. Jeff Bezos has bent the knee a little bit here and is going to be paying $15 an hour. Now, one thing I will caution people on, do not be quick to pat Jeff Bezos on the back here. What he's doing, don't congratulate someone when they got caught doing the wrong thing so many times. They finally did a little bit of the right thing. It's like the equivalent, you catch someone stealing something, you grab their arm and say, hey, you stole that, drop it, and they drop it. You don't congratulate them. Like, way to go, you dropped it. Look, when somebody works for you, there's no charity involved on either end. They're providing you a product, they're providing you a good, and if you don't give them a living wage out the gate, you were stealing from them. So patting Jeff Bezos on the back is the equivalent of congratulating the thief. I'm just saying we need to recognize this for what it is. What are your guys' thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's the guy that comes late every day to work who finally shows up on time and goes, see, I'm on time. I should get a raise. Do you like my wacky tie? I mean, in the short run, I'm glad that people who are making whatever $9, $10 an hour are now getting 15. That's a great thing. But let's be real clear here. This guy has $168 billion. He could peel off one of those $1 billion and he could change his 300,000 employees' lives for the better. And guess what? He would still be able to fly on a $75 million Gulfstream.
Yeah, and he was facing a lot of criticism for, there was a patent that came out that they were potentially looking at building cages for employees. Employees were reporting that they were going to the bathroom in bags and in bottles. And the bill that Bernie Sanders introduced, the Stop Bad Employers by Zeroing Out on Subsidies bill, or Stop Bezos, was really going to impose a 100% tax on his company to cover the costs of employees who had to get government subsidies, things like housing subsidies or food stamps. So let's be honest, this is his way of avoiding that and trying to correct the bad PR that he was getting.
So, you bring up Bernie, and this is something interesting that I'm kind of wrestling with. I wanted Bernie to start a third party. I showed up at Convergence, I showed up at Draft Bernie. I thought that we're kind of at that point in our politics and in our world where something like that is necessary. It doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. So what we need is a suitable alternative. And what I think that suitable alternative is kind of a rise in labor and a rise in kind of just progressive alliances all across the country. And I see that working. He showed up for Disney and it worked for Disney. Now it's working for Amazon. Bernie says his first priority is transforming the Democratic Party. I understand that task, but I think his first priority should be really coalescing and throwing his weight around to bring about a rise in labor, because I think that's how actual change is going to happen. I think that the real change we need in this country is going to happen outside of electoral politics, or at least if it does involve electoral politics, it's going to be more on the local levels and then spread nationwide.
I mean, to go back to the Amazon thing, what Brigitte touched on, obviously Bezos is doing, he's avoiding all those things that you brought up. But he's also saying, well, if I give you an extra $5 an hour, now you don't have to form a union. That's his main, that's another tactic that he was doing here. And I agree that if we do, a party that we should form should be a labor-based party, because labor transcends red state, blue state. I can guarantee you there's people in red and blue states that are getting screwed over by the management. And we saw too the teacher strikes in several red states, and they were successful.
They were very successful, exactly. Yeah.
So that's what I think it should be. It should be a labor-based third party.
Yeah. I mean, I just think like this, he's showing that that's where, because you need to kind of have there's a reason why there were pro-union Republicans so many years ago. It wasn't because like Republicans were just really nice and Democrats were even nicer. It was because they knew they had to be that way. So yes, I would love for this to eventually be a third party. If that's not going to happen anytime soon, in the meantime, I think that our best action forward is a huge rise in labor. That's why I like what the DSA is doing. I like the fact that they're picking out these causes and they're running with them. And they're also, having progressives run on various different levels. Some are trying to infiltrate the Democrats. Some are running as independents and Greens. I think that what kind of needs to happen, like when you look at what happened the first time with FDR, when we got out of the Great Depression, we had our FDR. There were socialist parties that were loud. There was an organized labor movement that was loud. So FDR basically had to go to his rich friends and he had to be like, okay, you guys are either gonna give up a little bit and still be rich, or you're gonna have to give up all of it. Choice is yours. And then we got Social Security and we got all the other things we got with the New Deal. I think that needs to happen again. And I think we're slowly starting to see it work one strike at a time.
For now, though, I'm worried about automation. As automation comes into play, we're going to see a much harder, it's going to be much harder for people to have that labor movement because now they're potentially going to be fighting against these corporations and they're replacing people with machines. And if they're not going to be putting in sort of universal basic incomes, then how is a labor movement going to work? That's my concern, I guess, with the labor movement.
It's a great point because I just did a video for Political Vigilante about Amazon just opened up cashierless stores.
Yeah.
They opened up their first one in Seattle.
And they're increasingly putting robots on their floors in their warehouses. So yeah, that's just I would love to see a labor movement, as you said, but I really worry that it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
How would they do that then? What would they, like, how would that work? In terms of, how could we deal with the automation that is coming, that's happening?
Well, my hope is that as technology progresses, some of the problems that are being created by technology will also be solved by technology, if that makes sense. So sure, we might have a rise of automation, but we may be able to make more, I don't know, offset it somehow.
Well, I think that's kind of where the conversation with UBI starts, a universal basic income. Because the inevitability of it is the technology is never going to go away, which means like once automation starts, it's not going to go backwards. It's going to keep going forward. So then you get into the discussion of it's time for a UBI in this country where everyone just gets a universal basic income. So I think that's going to be part of the conversation. I don't think it's going to be the whole thing because I think you also have to then have tight rent control being enacted because otherwise like housing will just go through the roof. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of complicated factors at play here, and that's something that's a little bit discouraging because when you look at what happened the first time around with our FDR, a lot of the things that society had in place back then, we don't have in place now.
Right.
And that's a concern.
Yeah, I think too, one of the models that I heard that was interesting about UBI is not exclusively UBI, but UBI as an option, and there's still jobs in the private sector if you want them. You actually get the choice if you want them, and that might handle or adjust to the imbalance that we're going to have with the automation that you're talking about, which I'd like to see. I think there's a solution out there. I think it's just we got to get a bunch of economists, not corporatists, to figure this out.
That's what I was going to say, because sure, there's a solution, but how are you going to get the corporations and the people like Jeff Bezos to cave and want to support those policies? Because they're ultimately the ones in Congress who are lobbying, putting all their money into promoting candidates that help them, not necessarily that help the people.
Tom Perez, the DNC chair, who is could not lead his way out of a paper bag and could probably not directly answer the question, what did you have for breakfast this morning? That guy has struck again. In this case, it's in the...
Well, to be fair, he could answer that question if it was funded by a big corporation.
What did you want me to have for breakfast?
Granola. Yes, I'll have that.
You know, when we put breakfast on the ballot, everybody wins and everybody gets a breakfast. And when we don't put breakfast on the ballot, we lose. That's what really is going on. And I like turkey sandwiches for lunch. That would be his answer to that question. What did you have for breakfast this morning? So This goes into what's going on with Brett Kavanaugh. The DNC chair gives the thumbs up to any Democrats who might vote for Kavanaugh. Want to vote for Kavanaugh? Well, according to the DNC chair, that's A-okay. What are you gonna do? Here's some quotes from the article. Let's go to the figure 1, please. At this point, voting against Brett Kavanaugh should be the most basic thing possible for anyone calling themselves a Democrat. This was true before his Senate hearing, but voting to confirm him after that hellish frenzy of male disgust at the mere idea of female power should get you run out of town instantly. When you say that it's fine for Democrats to back him, you are saying that the rage and anguish and fear that people, especially women, feel about his potential confirmation is meaningless to you. This is not complicated. And finally, as long as Democrats like Tom Perez keep selling out their voters like this, they will keep sending the message that there is no reason to trust them with anything, despite what they say about their values. That was my added ad lib. So my thoughts, Brigida?
I mean, are we surprised by this? Like, everyone keeps calling out the DNC and the Democratic Party. Oh my God, look what they've done. But like, isn't that why we're all here? Because they do keep doing this? Why are we surprised?
I feel the same way. I read this.
surprised?
I wasn't mad when I read this. I just went, oh, look, Tom Perez is doing exactly what Tom Perez is doing.
Exactly. He's being an establishment Democrat. He's doing exactly what the party has always done and proving to everybody else that they're not going to change their ways. And this is exactly why I personally think Trump is going to win again.
Right, because that's a great point. Because this is all they're going to say. Oh, resist, 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 and then they're going to go.
But they're not going to resist at all.
They're not going to resist at all.
Hashtag resist, ... If you feel like it.
If you feel like it.
Or not.
And the thing here is, not only is this offensive to women or anyone that's been an abuse victim, not only that, let's just put that aside just for a second, not to minimize it, but to put it aside. The Supreme Court was put in place by the founders as a check against, to make sure that a president didn't become a king. That's what it was there for. And both sides should be wanting to have somebody in there that's neutral. But this is how ridiculous the two-party system is that they sell everyone out. They contradict and are hypocritical at every turn. And they're offensive to women or anyone else that's been a victim of sexual assault. It's
Even to people who haven't been victims of sexual assault. It's incredibly offensive to the American people to think that it's okay to be cheering for this guy and giving a thumbs up vote for him, especially with all the allegations.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, like, if he's so innocent, I know if I was accused of anything I didn't do by anybody, I'd be like, I want a full investigation.
Right.
Because I would have nothing to hide.
Well, and when he was asked a direct question, he gave every tell in the book. Imagine, like, do you remember that? Like she was like, "Did you do it?" And he was like, "No, I didn't." No, he grabbed a binder for no reason. Do you remember that? Like, he just grabbed the binder. He's like, "Is this mitts? Is it full of women?" "No, I didn't do it. I like beer. Me and my friends like beer." And that was like, what are you? If you're asked a question and you babble on about your childhood for 40 minutes, it might be because you have something to hide. I don't know. Call me crazy.
Yes or no questions are pretty easy when you're innocent. You know, did you steal that thing? No, I didn't do that. Not well. At a certain time when stealing was viewed by people and of other, they just give this like corporate doublespeak, and it just shows you how ridiculous both parties are. The Republicans are getting behind this guy who's clearly a rapist, and then Tom Perez sells him out. Like we as the American people keep going for the lesser of two evils. Wouldn't it be great to have somebody understanding how important this job is and saying, you know what, yes, you should investigate me 100% because this is the highest court in the land. I'm going to be involved in decisions that I can't even foresee that are going to infect every single person. Where's that type of leadership?
Well, because by putting somebody like Kavanaugh in, that is what the leadership wants. They want somebody who is pro-corporate, somebody who's going to be there for the next 40 years or so. I mean, we're looking at it from our perspective, but we just have to realize that our leaders really don't care, and they've proven that over and over again. They don't care about the people.
Well, yeah, I it's like asking like, hey Graham, did you eat the last candy bar? Well, when I would hang out with my friends Squeebity, Billy, and Boner, we would have candy bars all the time. And
I mean, let's the candy bar. Let's not spend time on partisan candy bars. Like, just answer it. Did you steal it or did you not? And then then the stuff that Perez said, I can't even.
Well, do you guys think it's likely that some Democrats are gonna go for him?
Yes. Yes, they will, unless they realize that there might be political consequences, because they wouldn't know to vote with morals and ethics if they wouldn't know if that was put right in front of them. If you ask them point blank, what do your morals and ethics say? Well, we vote for the values of the, I mean, they would go into the same nonsensical answer because none of them have any sort of moral compass on any level to make any decision.
They're all finding ways to justify Kavanaugh's behavior and the allegations against him, saying that he was a juvenile at the time. He was 17. The statute of limitations in Maryland where he's being accused is 1 year for what would amount to a misdemeanor. Even if it was a second degree assault, that would be a misdemeanor. And especially for a minor, I don't think he would get in trouble at the time. And rape in Maryland at that time was also a misdemeanor. So they find ways to make it okay and justify it because it's not really a crime. It's just a misdemeanor.
Well, and let me pose this question to you guys, because this, like looking at this like bigger themed, where you just have this supposed opposition that just rolls over constantly, time and time again. Blue no matter who empowers Trump or any other Republican. Blue no matter who empowers them, because blue no matter who gives you the people that are going to go along with them. Blue no matter who gives you Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin had a wonderful primary opponent in Paula Jean Swearengin, who is an amazing leader, and I would love to see her in office. She ran against him. The establishment got behind Joe Manchin. The blue no matter who got behind Joe Manchin, and he's still around. Blue no matter who gives you your Joe Donnellys, your Claire McCaskells. Blue no matter who gives them. So when you see people arguing for blue no matter who, saying, well, at least we just got to get the votes against Trump. It's like, no, your strategy gives us the votes that Trump needs. It's like the opposite.
I just feel like, and I don't understand why like neoliberals don't see this. Because it's the same thing. It's this this is exactly which every time, and they're like, but the Republican parties, they're so far right wing, they're so evil. Yeah, so don't follow them. Go left. Like they just can't seem to get that through their heads. Like stop going. Well, this incremental centrism is what causes this, and they gave us Trump. I mean, it's their fault that we have Trump, and that we have now, because Trump is in the White House, we're about to have Kavanaugh, this frat boy idiot, is going to be in the Supreme Court. And do something, Democrats. Like, I'm sorry, the lesser of two evils. It's the equivalent of like you and your significant other, and you have kids, and it's date night, and it's like, well, we've got two babysitters to choose from: the meth head or the serial killer. Those are our two choices. At least the meth head won't murder our children.
But the meth head can be pushed to the left. I think that if we bring the meth head in,
if the meth head
they can
leaves
be,
with their values, Ron, then the meth head can.
The meth head makes a mean turkey sandwich, and that turkey sandwich could be a full meal if we push them. Guys, we are coming up against the break. A quick plug here. Graham Elwood and myself are going on tour. The Progressive Comedy Tour has been announcing some dates. November 2nd, Sacramento, California. November 3rd, San Francisco, California. Get your tickets now because they're running a little low. You can get those tickets over at ronplacone.com or grahamelwood.com.
We're just adding November 4th in Santa Barbara. We'll have a ticket link up for that very soon.
Yes, and January 9th, Gainesville, Florida. January 11th, Orlando, Florida. And it looks like January 12th, Jacksonville, Florida. Details coming on that soon, but tickets are available now for Gainesville and Orlando. And where we're going next is an issue that I know I've talked to all of you off mic about at various times. This is an issue that is near and dear to all of us and really affects us a lot here, particularly in California right now, and that is net neutrality. Now, California has passed a very, very tough net neutrality bill, and that bill was SB 822. It was a good net neutrality bill, and Governor Jerry Brown did sign it. Signed it at the last possible minute, but he did sign it. And no sooner had the ink dried on the piece of paper than the DOJ was coming at California with a lawsuit. They didn't even wait. Like, it was like instantaneous. Like, I tweeted, like, I was like, hey, this is good news. And they were like, we're suing. I was like, wow, on a Sunday, no less. On a Sunday. So let's go back to the graphic. California's tough net neutrality bill prompts U.S. lawsuit. So the new law prohibits internet providers from blocking or slowing data based on content or from favoring websites or video streams from companies that pay extra. Now here's another part of the bill that makes it even stronger than the Obama-era net neutrality protections, which we got on the books in 2015. That doesn't mean it didn't exist until 2015, and I always think it's important to point that out. We've basically had assumed net neutrality since the advent of the internet, but we didn't have it solidified into law. And digital rights activists for years were pushing for it to be on the books, and the FCC wouldn't do it. So finally, the cable companies took it to court and they won, and then Tom Wheeler had to designate the internet as a utility to get us the net neutrality protections that we had on the books in 2015. And he did that not because he wanted to, he actually didn't want to. Why? Because he was a lobbyist. But people commented it and commented until the FCC's website crashed, so he did the right thing at the 11th hour. So anyway, net neutrality, my point is net neutrality's been around for a long, long time. It's just been solidified on the books since 2015. It has since been repealed, and so we're fighting it on the state levels and in various different capacities that we'll get into. But here's another thing this particular California bill does. It also bans zero rating, in which internet providers don't count certain content against a monthly data cap, generally video streams produced by the company's own subsidiaries and partners. So basically, if an internet service provider is saying, oh, if you stream with this video service that we have a contract with, it won't go against your monthly data cap. It'll just be copacetic. They can't do that anymore. And finally, the U.S. Department of Justice wants to stop the law, arguing that it creates burdensome anti-consumer requirements that go against the federal government's approach of deregulating the internet. They make it out like that's a good thing. Like departments, we just want to deregulate the internet so you can pay $30 extra a month to go to Twitter. What's wrong with that? That's freedom, right? America. So we're going to talk about this bill, and then we're going to talk about where this entire issue needs to go next. But let me get your takes on it right away, Brigida.
All right, so I love this because I love when the GOP, which is pro more rights for states, does exactly the opposite of what they've been fighting for. You know, especially Jeff Sessions, he's all about like states' rights, until this happens. And then he's like, no states' rights, no states' rights. So I
Or if
find
it
that,
involves pot.
Yeah,
Then he's
or if
also,
it involves
then
pot,
he's also,
yes.
oh, never mind.
Yeah, but I just love how they flip what they care about as soon as they're in the federal offices.
Oh, it's so great. It's that quote you had up there is just, they literally just, the reason the lawsuit was filed is because they just had a program with that language ready to go the minute it was just going to automatically send that lawsuit with all of their base talking point, because their whole thing is, boy, the Democrats regulate and we can't get business done. That's why it's like, so they do, and then the state right, they do the same thing. States' rights, unless it's, you know, gay marriage or pot or this, then we're gonna come in and say the federal government's gonna put its foot on your neck. And I wanna read this quote. Once again, the California legislature has enacted an extreme and illegal state law attempting to frustrate federal policy. That's from our boy Jeff Sessions.
So he weighed in on it. So the other thing important to note here is that this bill that got passed was not the only bill related to net neutrality that was proposed here in California, and that's an important piece of this entire puzzle. There was also an accompanying bill to go along with the bill that got passed. Now, the bill that got passed was SB 822, and that essentially just gave everybody net neutrality protections. It brought back net neutrality protections for all consumers.
It gave it back to them.
The accompanying bill.
It didn't really give them anything, it just gave it back.
Yeah, it gave it back. It gave it back.
They're heroes because they gave back the thing that they stole.
Yeah.
But that's what the accompanying bill, how it was different was that bill made it a requirement that anybody wanting to do business in the states, the state of California, had to abide by net neutrality laws and rules, or else they would not get any government contracts. The reason this is important to note is because they passed this bill knowing it was going to be taken to court. They knew there was going to be lawsuits involved, and there's lawsuits going on in other parts of the country too. This bill, because it bled into the way states use their funding, had this bill passed too, there would have been a much stronger case. That the overall net neutrality bill would have been much less susceptible in court. Because that accompanying bill didn't pass, what's a little more susceptible in court. It's like that accompanying bill was like it's buddy that's built and buff and ready to be like, oh, you want to mess with this bill? You're gonna have to go through me first. That bill didn't pass, so it's just the one lonely bill, kind of like that Schoolhouse Rocks video, you know.
I mean, overall, I like seeing that the states are fighting for themselves, and net neutrality is so important. And it's something, Ron, you've talked a lot about is municipal broadband. We were all talking about it before the show, and I think this is what you have to do when the federal. And this is how the system was set up. This is how this country was set up. Is when the federal government is overreaching, you're supposed to circumvent it. You're supposed to say, no, we're going to do it our way, you know? And in this case, it's for a good thing. And so I think more states should do this. I think more states and cities especially should start their own broadband to just like take this out. Because the telecommunications companies, they're running everything. You know, Jeff Sessions is just a mouthpiece for, for all of them. And so we need to go around them.
Right, and if they really want to keep the Senate, and if they want to battle anybody in the House elections, they have to realize that for Republicans, net neutrality is a popular bill. All Americans, for the most part, want net neutrality. So I find it fascinating that they're trying to go against the will of the people. For what? For corporations to be able to charge people more money?
This is where the corporate duopoly really shows its head to all Americans, because when they first were getting rid of net neutrality, the site that went like NASCAR fans went the craziest, because they were like, they live stream it, they're so inactive in it as those fans, and that's a very right-leaning fan base. And they were realizing, hey, this isn't right. And hopefully it'll be the kind of thing that wakes up all of Americans to realize that we're all getting screwed over. They want us divided, red state, blue state, liberal, conservative. But guess what? They're all the politicians are bought and paid for. And it's just professional wrestling, the Republicans and Democrats, and it's a scam.
And it's not just about our wanting to go on the internet and look things up and have fun on our iPhones. It also has already impacted firefighters in California. As soon as the net neutrality rules were removed, they started blocking, I think it was Verizon that started throttling services to firefighters, and they weren't able to provide the emergency services. They actually released a statement saying that it did affect their ability to provide those emergency services.
And you bring up municipal broadband, which is an excellent point. We'll talk about that even more in the next segment here. But municipal broadband takes the internet out of these corporations' hands, out of the hands of Comcast and AT&T, and puts it into the hands of the public, and it makes it another utility in your city. That's what we should have done in the first place. Countries that did this in the first place, they have better internet than we do at a cheaper price. Countries that did what we did and allowed organized duopolies to exist, they have worse internet at a higher price. That's just definitionally what happened. Chattanooga, Tennessee has municipal broadband. They've had it for years. And you talk about bipartisan support from the people. You know, Chattanooga did it, and they have the best internet in the country at a reasonable price, less than what most Americans pay. So now the entire state of Tennessee is really getting on board with this and trying to have their own municipal projects. I used to live in Nashville. I lived in the Blue Dot in Tennessee, but it was still a relatively conservative place nonetheless. So the message of municipal broadband is one that has support from all Americans, and it's one of those things that fixes net neutrality permanently, because you don't need bills to keep these corporations in check if you have municipal broadband.
It also creates jobs, because you can turn any place into a tech hub. Any city, a farm, you can turn it into a tech hub when you have high-speed internet. And it helps everyone. It helps farmers. It doesn't just help startups.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed this free clip of Aggressive Progressives on the Young Turks. This is just a preview of what you will receive with TYT membership. That means exclusive interviews, panel discussions, and more of Jimmy, and of course, me. If you like what you saw, you can access full episodes of Aggressive Progressives by becoming a member. Head to tyt.com/join now.